This is our own DNComputers.com with Torverio Parati. Oi, another ugly Windows error. I mean, the Windows errors just are an endless parade. Micro shit, micro slop, micro crap. Unexpected kernel mode trap error. Now, this is not exclusive to Windows 10. I think this one goes back at least Windows XP. But this video is primarily targeted for Windows 10. But you could certainly use the tips in this video as a basis for possibly troubleshooting unexpected kernel mode trap. Windows, wind blows, micro shit, micro crap, micro slop. It's a trap, alright. When you continue to rely on this pathetic operating system. I don't rely on Microsoft operating system. I have a backup. But I use Linux, and I know how to support Mac operating system. Let me cut to the chase. This is the customer's question or statement. Two things. Pop state keeps stacking up in email account. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Are they talking about post office protocol, POP, in their email? I don't fucking know what that meant. I didn't even waste my time bother even trying to fucking, glean any information from this person about what the fuck that statement meant. Also, computer has been shutting down very often, stating PC ran into a problem and had to be shut down. That is classic Windows, all the way back to Windows 95. Yes, blue screens, all the way back to Windows 95, or the computer will be active, Windows will be running. Oh, I know, you communist, socialist, cockroach Americans on YouTube, you get all offended by people using certain words to describe. An average computer user doesn't give a fuck. An average computer user doesn't want to use, technical terms. There's nothing wrong with using the word running to describe an operating system performing its tasks. But that is classic. Microsoft Windows, that is classic. It'll be humming along. You'll be, reading your emails, browsing on ashleymadison.com, cheating on your significant others or whatever it is that you Americans participate in. And then all of a sudden, Windows will just blue screen, or it'll just shut down, or it'll reboot, or you'll get an error saying Windows had to shut down. Oh yes, even Windows 10. Oh yes, Windows 10 is no better than any other Microsoft operating system. Windows has not improved over time. Happens wherever I might be working, see, and shuts down. It's just out of the blue, pun intended, just bam. Now, this individual was using a computer with Windows 10 installed. Now, here is where I go with the solutions. Click on the link in the description box of this video down below to my blog post on my website, internetcomputers.com, to read the tips, the tricks, the abstract instructions on how you can potentially fix this error. I included the word potential in the title. Don't get all fucking butthurt. Don't get all emotional if this does not fix your issue. You must realize that, especially in the micro slop world, the word absolutism should almost never be used, except for in context. Windows absolutely sucks, and absolutely Windows is going to have blue screens and unexpected kernel mode traps, even with Windows 10. I have no idea what fixed this issue because this customer never responded back. I was compensated. They complained. A lot of Americans are whiners. They complain about everything. They think that computers are microwaves. They think that they are refrigerators. They think that they are like devices where you just push one button, or like a bread cooker. You push bake, and then poof, your bread is like perfect. I don't eat bread. That's crappy for you. I don't eat bread. Yeah, that baked crap? No, fuck no. Whatever. Cake? No, fuck that shit. That shit's terrible for you. Bread is terrible for you. Except for one, I think maybe one type of bread might be okay for you. Anyways, I digress back to this issue. The first thing I had them try was an SFC scan. However, this message kept popping up, so it was getting in the way, and that was this message right here. Unexpected kernel mode trap error. So they claimed, the end user claimed that this computer would just reboot whenever, just whatever triggered it, it would reboot. And also, as they were using their Windows 10 computer, they kept receiving this unexpected kernel mode trap error pop up and get in their way. However, since I'm a computer repair technician, I know there's different ways to obtain the same solutions. There's different ways to kick off commands. If you cannot get into a command prompt going through the normal ways, which would be to click on the Windows logo in the lower right-hand corner, lower left-hand corner, excuse me, then there's another way. And here's the one way. Control-Alt-Delete. Press Control-Alt-Delete at the same time, and a blue screen should pop up, and then you select Task Manager. Once you're in Task Manager, then you select File, click on File, and then choose Run New Task. And this is where knowledge is key. When you continue to remain ignorant, ignorant is bliss until you die from a vaccination. You know what I'm saying? This is where learning about technology can be very productive, especially in a crisis like this. Your fucking goddamn fucking TPS reports is not in on time, and your boss is gonna fucking bend you over and sodomize you because now he's gonna get yelled at. It doesn't have to do with you. He doesn't give a fuck a rat's ass about you, your boss, bitch or asshole, male or female, whatever, you know, duality. No, it's because he or she is gonna get in trouble by their authoritative goon called their boss. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with you. It's selfish on their behalf. Alright, I digress. Type in CMD without quotes, and then select a checkbox. Create this task with administrative privileges. Did you know that? Did you know that from a task manager you can run Windows commands? Did you know that? Huh? Yes, you can. And you can even run them as an administrator. In case for whatever reason, you know, an error keeps popping up, or you've got malware, spyware, viruses that just have mucked up, or another thing that none of the shills on YouTube, none of the tech channel shills that just sell you a bunch of garbage, they just market to you and they just kiss Microsoft's ass. Another feature is that sometimes the Windows Start button, which is no longer labeled Start, but the Windows logo, lower left-hand corner, with the tiles, sometimes that doesn't work. I'm not making this shit up. When I first upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10, I ran into that problem twice. It might be on my YouTube channel. So what I'm trying to tell you is to think outside of a box. You need to learn how to think analytically, critically, cynically, logically outside of a box so that you can learn different ways to perform tasks in Windows, because you never know when you're faced with a crisis situation. If the Windows Start button or the Windows menu button doesn't work, an average user, they don't know what the fuck to do. They just freak out and get emotional and, you know, start shooting people. I mean, you know what I'm saying? No, just calm down. You don't need to get emotional. Anger is good, but you channel anger. I'm angry. God damn it. Microsoft sucks. God damn it. My TPS report is due. God damn it. Oh, well, you know what? That schmuck, and I won't get too derogatory, that clown Aaron says that you can, you know, run commands from Task Manager. Oh, I'll try that. Oh my God. For once. The first time Aaron has ever been right. The other 10,000 videos of his was absolute garbage, trash, incorrect information. But Aaron got something right once. What a schmuck. Press OK. And then a command prompt should open. As long as wind blows is not so destructed and destroyed, a command prompt window should open. So this is another way to open up a command prompt. Now, I think there's a Windows shortcut, but again, I just cut to the chase, man, when it comes to helping people. I know there's other ways to open a command prompt. You know what I'm saying? But when you've got some fucking error that keeps getting in your way, or when the computer, every once in a while, I don't know how often. Americans are terrible communicators. This person, I ask a lot of questions. As a computer repair technician, asking questions is always productive to me. Well, you know what I mean. The word, that's absolutist. It depends on the person. If the person doesn't know shit, or they're just reluctant, or they're terrible communicators, sometimes just say fuck it. But a lot of times it helps to ask a lot of questions when you're trying to diagnose a problem. You know what I'm saying? Now, once in a command prompt, you just type in this command, sfc /scan out. That's it. Type it in. Hit enter. Bam. According to my pattern recognition and experiences, it's a good idea to run SFC scans more than once. A lot of times, the first time they will find errors, and it will say they cannot fix the errors, and then that's when I've learned that run it at least 3 times. A lot of times, the first time you run SFC scan, it will find errors and claim that it fixed the errors, but I just always out of habit go ahead and run it 3 times. That's it. Run that command. Now, another potential, there's many reasons. I didn't include every fucking reason why you're getting this goddamn fucking unexpected kernel mode trap disastrous error on Windows 10 or any other version of Windows. There could be many reasons why. Many. Now, another possible reason, believe it or not, is that you have a conflicting device. It could be a device driver issue. But since this customer was a terrible communicator and just, and then didn't really respond back with much information, then again, you Americans, you need to learn how to communicate better. You're always complaining and whining about how terrible things are and how many and bitching when a problem arises. You're stingy. You refuse to pay an honest wage to a computer repair tech, but then you expect us to fix all your issues within seconds. Well, you know what? That's what this is for. I'm not saying all my customers, most of my, I don't know what the percentages are. A high percentage are halfway decent. You know what I'm saying? It could be that you have an external device connected. USB flash drive, a printer, what else? External drive, anything external. A peripheral. Let's use a technical term, a peripheral. A scanner, printer. Disconnect everything that you can think of. Believe it or not, even your keyboard and your mouse. And then what you do, obviously, you only really need technically. You probably only need a mouse to boot up a Windows computer, but your computer might beep at you and complain to you and tell you that you don't have a keyboard. And believe it or not, some computers you can't even boot without a keyboard, but that's very rare. Try to disconnect everything that you can think of, like wireless mice. Wireless mice have those little USB radio antennas, you know what I'm saying? Just disconnect anything that you can think of, like USB or PS2. It could be a driver that is causing that error, believe it or not. And so what you want to do is disconnect everything and then try to boot up Windows. And even if you're still using Windows 10 and you start disconnecting peripherals, it could be that error, that pessimistic and pesky error, that irritating error will disappear. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so after you've disconnected everything, you might want to reboot if you still have a mouse connected. Or what you could do is you could maybe use a different keyboard or a different mouse. Don't use the wireless mouse. If you have a corded USB mouse, try that. And see if indeed that error disappears after you've disconnected items. And then what you do is, with the process of elimination, process of deductive theory, well, that's not a theory, but whatever. Process of deduction is then you go and connect everything back. If you had multiple things connected, a flash drive, an external drive, USB keyboard, wireless USB mouse, and you had a printer connected, and you had your iPod connected, and an iPhone, you had all these peripherals connected. Well, just one by one connect them until that error shows up again, and then you will know what your culprit is. Oh, my iPod caused it. I'm not attacking Apple. Well, I do attack Apple. I criticize them. I'm not just, attacking Apple at this point. I'm just saying. I just use that as an example. The process of elimination. And then finally, check disk. I'm a big proponent of using an SFC scan, although a lot of times SFC scans are useless, but to me they're still worth trying because to me they're easy to learn. I mean, it's only 3 letters. System file check space the / near the shift key. Next to the shift key, lower right hand corner of your keyboard. That's the /. Scan now. An average proletariat, serf, slave, feudal lord, worshipper would have a higher percentage chance, in my opinion, of memorizing that command. Whereas if you give them, DISM, you give these very technical commands with variables, you're going to lose them, and your client's going to fucking yell at you. They'll get all emotional. They might even attack you. These Americans they get violent when they get frustrated. Their classic behavior, these Americans, is to take out their frustrations on somebody else, an innocent female or a child or an innocent male. Oh yes. Especially overseas in the Middle East, based off of lies. But I digress back to this. And other parts of the planet, but you know what I'm saying. Check disk. My experiences over the years is check disk is much more valuable. I always run a check disk when I run into certain problems like this. Always. Always, always, always. SFC scan, I still use that tool, although most times the percentages are very low, but I still run it 3 times because you just never know. Anything on micro shit, micro crap, micro slop, wind blows can trigger a potential crisis like this. Anything. And so I just use as many tools as I can. But I would say over the years, check disk much better. You would be surprised what check disk can actually fix. I had them run a check disk, so as long as you can get into a command prompt, whether it's via the Windows button, the tiled button, or Cortana, or what is it? I think you can open command prompt with the Windows key and something. I don't know if it's. I don't think it is the Windows key. I need to look that up because you know what? That might make it even easier. See. Let me be blunt. You have to dumb computers down. These mental midgets, I don't understand it. Why would you use a device and not educate yourself? It's like driving an automobile. It's like driving a manual automobile, 5-speed manual. And you don't even know how to engage the clutch properly. Well, why the fuck would you continue to try to drive that car until somebody teaches you or until you learn? It just makes no logical sense. People think that computers are like appliances. They just have a couple of buttons. Oh, here's the power button, or it's a rice cooker. Oh, okay, my rice cooker I think has 5 buttons. It's computerized. I'm not a big fan of computerized rice cookers because I realize that there's a circuit board somewhere. Whereas the old school rice cookers just had a switch. And those are they're less likely to fail. But believe it or not, alright, I digress back. My rice cooker has like 5 buttons. That's as technical as it is. You know what I'm saying? But whatever. Check disk. CHKDSK space C : space /F space /R. So you got a couple of variables. I always use /F/R because that is a very comprehensive version of check disk. it will check for corrupt files, and also it will look for bad sectors. If check disk finds data or files that were corrupt due to bad sectors, what check disk will do is it will try to repair those files, or it will replace them. If it finds a good file on the hard drive, it will replace that file, or it'll try to move that data or that file or files, plural, to a good sector of the hard drive, and I think it even marks them. I think it does. I think technically check disk will mark sectors that are bad for the operating system, so that Windows knows not to use that portion of the hard drive. Don't. It marks it as bad in the table. I don't know if it's in the registry. I need to look into that. I don't know if it's in the registry or some kind of database, but yes. So check disk can be very valuable. And then another reason why I highly, highly, highly suggest that you learn these scans is that they can trigger. What can happen is that SFC can kind of fix something. It may not solve the problem exclusively 100%, but it can fix a couple of, let's say this is a catastrophic event, a crisis. Send in the military, send in the National Guard, send in the NSA. We got to spy on everybody because this is a crisis. You know what I'm saying? Well, SFC scan might fix system restore. Oh, and then what you can do is, oh shit, well now system restore works. Or it might, believe it or not, an SFC scan might fix this error. It may not. Disconnecting all your peripherals might fix it. It may not, which would be a driver's issue. Then you would go and upgrade drivers or whatever. Check disk might fix this issue. It may not, just by itself. But when you combine certain troubleshooting steps with my years of experiences, then eventually something else will work. Oh, okay. Well, that error still exists, but not nearly as often. Every half an hour instead of every 10 minutes, or every hour instead of every half an hour, whatever. And then what you can do is then you can try to run a system restore. You know what I'm saying? And then you just work your way out of the crisis. So that's my video. Now, and then you have to type in, yes, when you kick off a check disk from within Windows, you have to run command prompt with administrator. And I'm not going to go over, well, you know what? I could just quickly demonstrate it, but very quickly. Let me change. Nope, not that one. I'll get to it. There we go. So to kick off a check disk, just right click here, choose command prompt admin. If it's available, say yes. Then you'll get this command prompt. Bam, chk dsk c:, you're telling what hard drive to scan, /f/r, bam. Now you're going to get this prompt. The type of the file system is NTFS, cannot lock current drive. Yes, your current file system is mounted. Well, check disk cannot run on a mounted file system. You know what I'm saying? Check disk cannot run because the volume is in use by another process. Yes, well, duh, that's the operating system. It's in use. So what you would do is type in Y for yes and then hit enter. What that will do, I'm not going to kick it off now. What that will do is that it will schedule a check disk scan at the next reboot. I'm going to hit no just because I'm not going to kick it off. But you need to type a Y for yes. And then it will say, it'll go back to the command prompt and say that a check disk scan has been scheduled for the next reboot. Now, let me demonstrate the SFC scan really quick. Just SFC/scan now. Bam. That's it. And then beginning system scan. This process will take some time. And then you'll get a dialog, beginning verification phase of system scan. And it will give you in percentages a progress indicator, as you can see on screen. See, that's it. And you let it run. And I run that 3 times when it comes to, trying to fix problems. That's it, man. That's how you kick off those 2 commands. And then one more caveat about check disk. So now that you scheduled a check disk scan, let me give you some warnings. It can take a long time depending on the size of your hard drive, depending on the health of your hard drive. It just depends on. I would get prepared for at least a couple hours. On this computer that I'm using right now, believe it or not, I run check disk scans periodically, once a month, every couple of months, as part of my routine maintenance. And every once in a while I run an SFC scan, even though technically I'm not aware of any problems that are causing me to go mentally ill and look for a different niche to hustle. Give yourself, on this computer it takes 2 hours. It's about almost exactly 2 hours every time. It takes 2 hours with the variables that I include in the blog post. With the variables, I'm not going to digress about check disk and how there's different variables, and there's a shorter one. There's 5 different scans with the variables I gave you. 5 different layers. The first 3 go pretty quick. The last 2 take a long time, and the 5th one can take a really long time. So I'm just warning you, if you need to use the computer for whatever reason, if you're, I don't know, but at this point, how can you use your computer? But I'm just saying. Then become aware that these check disk scans can take hours. And if you have a failing hard drive or a corrupt hard drive with bad sectors, it can take longer than 2 hours. They can take days. They can take weeks, believe it or not. Oh, yes. Yes. I know I've had scans run for days, and I think I've had 1 or 2 customers where it ran for weeks. I'm not making that shit up, because and then also the size of your hard drive. If you're running the scan on a 4 terabyte hard drive or 1 terabyte hard drive with a lot of data, oh yeah, that can take a long time. Or especially if the hard drive is failing, or if there's bad sectors, then oh yes, it can take weeks, believe it or not. But that's not the rule. That's the exception rather than the rule. The rule to me is set aside at least a couple hours. What you can do is you can go clubbing or meet up with your mistress like Americans, or AshleyMadison.com, or the divorce rate in America is well over 50% because you got all these Americans cheating on one another. I don't think that's very nice. I don't think that's productive. I don't, the word moral, I don't know. Is that moral? I don't know, man. If I had a family, no. I digress. Or before bedtime. Kick off check disk. What's going to happen is you're scheduling it in command prompt like I just showed you. Now once you say yes, it'll tell you that a scan has been scheduled, a check disk scan. You can exit out of command prompt as long as it tells you that a check disk scan was successfully scheduled. The only way to fuck up that command, the way I showed you, is if you type something else like T or P or another word. It's just a duality. You either type in Y for yes and for no. Case sensitive doesn't matter. You can use a capital Y or a lowercase y. It doesn't matter. Hit enter, bam. Once it tells you the scan's been scheduled, you can exit out of command prompt, close all your programs, and reboot the computer. If you want to kick it off now, reboot that computer and don't touch the keyboard. I think this is a mistake that a lot of neophytes make. They assume that they have to hit their keyboard or type something in, or just leave it alone. It should warn you. A screen should show up saying that you have 10 seconds to cancel a check disk by hitting any key. Don't touch your keyboard. Don't hit any key. It'll give you a 10-second timer. If you do not touch the keyboard within 10 seconds, the check disk scan will run, and there will be a window similar to a command prompt. Only it's just a blank window with a black background and white text. That's all it is. And then you're going to see progress. It's going to spit out a bunch of data that you probably won't understand. There's 5 different phases. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No 6, no 7, no 9, no 10. No. 1, 2, tres, cuatro, cinco. ¿Sí? Comprehende? Español? Okay. That's it. Just, you don't have to do anything. It will eventually, now sometimes check disk fails. Sometimes it'll get through the first 2-3 levels or 3 phases and bam, it spits out some error. Sometimes it gets to the 4th and the 5th. Sometimes it's almost finished and it'll error out. That could be an indicator that there's something wrong with your hard drive, or the file system is so corrupt the check disk can't even fix it. However, I don't know what the percentages are, but in my experiences, it's a high percentage that check disk will finish. It's very high. You're going to have a really good chance of it completing. It doesn't reboot the computer because you scheduled a scan at the next reboot. It'll try to write to a log. That might error. Who cares? It'll try to write to a log file. Who cares? I never care about that, but it might error out. And then it'll give you a summary, and then it'll go back to the command prompt. You'll just see the command prompt with you know what I'm saying, where you type in the commands, and that's it. Then what you do is you can type in exit, or you just reboot the computer. You do a Control-Alt-Delete, or you hit the reboot button on your computer, or you can do a cold boot, hit the power button, shut down the computer, hit the power button, power back on. Then that might fix the problem, but like I said before, it might fix it enough so that error doesn't occur as often, and that will give you more time. And then even if it errors out, and doesn't complete, kick it off again. And here's another tip. Sometimes I've noticed that, not always, sometimes even though you properly scheduled a check to scan and you typed in yes, and the response was a check to scan has been scheduled, the next time you reboot, and you rebooted it properly, you didn't touch the key, it kicked off. Well, it didn't kick off. Sometimes, I don't know what it is. Sometimes a check to scan does not kick off. I don't know why that is. It doesn't always kick off. What you do is you just log back into Windows, open up a command prompt with administrator rights, type in check disk space C colon space /F space /R, hit enter, type in yes to schedule a scan at the next reboot, and then try it again. Now, almost always, if you have to enter it in a second time, it will work this time. I don't know why it is. It's a bug or something strange. Usually, I don't have to schedule a check disk scan more than twice. I'm trying to think. Maybe once in a while it's occurred. That could be an indication that the file system is just completely fucked up. But generally, I'm able to kick off a check disk. I don't know why that is. It's a bug or it's just some oddity. So just go perform it again, kick it off, and it should start a second time. You know what I'm saying? And then some other tips. If it errors out, just keep trying to run it until it runs. Because what it might do is it might get along, it might fix a file. And then, like I said before, it'll trigger it, and then you're kind of it's like a health patient. Americans are sick because they eat garbage food. They eat animal meat, or they eat too much animal meat. I think a little bit of animal meat is okay, 10%, 5%, whatever. But they eat too much of that. They're eating too much Hardee's or Wendy's or Taco Bell. Too much fast food, which is garbage. Too much restaurant food, which is garbage. Drinking too much alcohol, snorting too much cocaine, or whatever these Americans spend their free time, participating in. And they're a health patient. Then all of a sudden they get extremely sick, cancer, whatever disease that they acquire. Well, it's similar. To me, Windows is a patient. It's very unhealthy. It's very unstable, mentally ill, irritable, dangerous, can be very dangerous, violent, and you know what I'm saying? So by you learning these tactics, you learn to medicate Windows and revive it from its deathbed. And sometimes you have to inch your way. You run this scan, then then you can kick off a system restore, and then blah, blah, blah. So hopefully these tips helped you. I'm not going to talk about anything further, DISM scans or system restore scans. When I make my videos about technology-related fixes, I stick to what fixed the issue. And I stick just to that. Adios. And as always, you're going to need a lot of good luck to fix these fucking Windows problems. Adios.